The Grand Metropolitan Hotel's crystal ballroom represented the pinnacle of luxury event spaces in the city, its soaring ceilings adorned with hand-painted frescoes and massive chandeliers that had witnessed decades of high society celebrations. Tonight, the opulent space had been transformed for my parents' 32nd wedding anniversary gala. A black tie affair that had taken Mom 18 months to plan and cost more than most people's annual salaries. 200 of the city's most prominent residents were expected to attend. Business leaders, politicians, judges, philanthropists, and the kind of old-money families whose names appeared on hospital wings and university buildings. This wasn't just an anniversary party. It was a carefully orchestrated display of the Morrison family's social standing and influence within the city's power structure. What made tonight particularly significant was that I wouldn't be attending. Not because I was traveling, not because I had other commitments, but because my own parents had explicitly banned me from their celebration. The text message had arrived 3 days ago while I was in a board meeting with the CEO of Phoenix Industries, discussing the final details of our $2.3 billion acquisition deal. "You're banned from our anniversary gala," Dad had written. "Don't embarrass us." The irony wasn't lost on me. While my parents were planning their social triumph, I was finalizing the largest business acquisition in my company's history. A deal that would bring my total net worth to $4.8 billion and cement my position as one of the youngest self-made billionaires in the country. I had replied simply, "Understood." But understanding and accepting were two different things entirely. For 3 years my family had treated me as their greatest disappointment. When I'd left my position at Mom's interior design firm to start Morrison Digital Solutions, they'd predicted immediate failure. When I turned down Dad's offer to join his real estate development company, they'd accused me of throwing away generational opportunities. When I'd moved out of the family estate to live modestly while building my business, they'd seen it as proof of my poor judgment and financial struggles. What they didn't know was that Morrison Digital Solutions had grown from a one-person startup into a technology empire encompassing artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and digital infrastructure services. While they'd been planning their anniversary gala, I'd been closing deals with Fortune 100 companies and building a business that employed over 8,000 people worldwide. The morning after receiving Dad's text, I'd called Richard Blackstone, owner of the Grand Metropolitan Hotel and the entire Blackstone Properties empire. Richard and I had met 2 years earlier when his company had hired Morrison Digital Solutions to overhaul their reservation and property management systems. What started as a business relationship had evolved into mutual respect between two entrepreneurs who understood the value of strategic thinking. "Richard, it's Alexandra Morrison," I'd said when he answered his private line. "Alexandra. Good to hear from you. How's the Phoenix Industries deal progressing?" "Signed yesterday. But I'm calling about something different. Are you familiar with the Morrison family anniversary gala scheduled for Saturday evening at your hotel?" "Of course. Your parents' event. One of our most elaborate bookings this year. Quite an impressive celebration they've planned. I'd like to purchase the Grand Metropolitan Hotel." The silence that followed lasted nearly 30 seconds. "Alexandra, did you just say you want to buy my hotel?" "The entire building, Richard. And I'd like to complete the transaction before Saturday evening." Another pause, shorter this time. "May I ask why the sudden interest in hospitality real estate?" "Let's call it a family matter that requires immediate resolution." Richard had built his empire by recognizing opportunity when it presented itself. He also understood that successful people didn't make impulsive decisions involving hundreds of millions of dollars without compelling reasons. "What are you thinking in terms of valuation?" "Fair market value plus 20% for the expedited timeline. I can have certified funds transferred within 24 hours. "Alexandra, the Grand Metropolitan is worth approximately $340 million. You're talking about a $408 million cash transaction with 1 day's notice." "I'm aware of the numbers, Richard. The question is whether you're interested in selling." By Wednesday afternoon the sale was complete. Morrison Holdings LC now owned the Grand Metropolitan Hotel, its contents, its staff, and most importantly, complete authority over who was and wasn't welcome on the premises. Saturday evening arrived with the kind of crisp autumn air that made the city's elite feel particularly satisfied with their lives. Luxury cars deposited guests at the hotel's grand entrance, where a red carpet and professional photographers awaited. The guest list read like a who's who of regional power. Senator Williams and his wife, Judge Patterson, the mayor and city council members, CEOs of the largest corporations, and 3 generations of old money families whose ancestors had built the city's foundations. I watched the arrivals from my suite on the hotel's top floor, the owner's penthouse that came with purchasing the property. Through floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the perfectly orchestrated scene below. Valets parking Bentleys and Maseratis, guests in designer gowns and custom tuxedos, photographers capturing moments that would appear in tomorrow's society pages. At exactly 6:30 p.m., my parents arrived in Dad's silver Rolls-Royce, looking every inch the successful power couple they'd spent 3 decades becoming. Mom wore a stunning emerald gown that probably cost more than some people's cars, while Dad's custom tuxedo emphasized his distinguished silver hair and the bearing of a man accustomed to commanding respect. They paused for photographs, accepting congratulations from early arrivals and basking in the kind of social recognition they'd worked their entire adult lives to achieve. This was their moment, the culmination of careful relationship building, strategic charitable giving, and the methodical construction of a reputation that opened doors throughout the region. What they didn't know was that I owned the building they were celebrating in. By 7 p.m., the ballroom was filled with 200 guests enjoying cocktails, gourmet hors d'oeuvres, and the kind of networking that happened when the city's power structure gathered in one room. Conversations flowed around topics of political influence, business acquisitions and charitable foundations, with my parents at the center of it all, accepting congratulations and enjoying their position as the evening's honored hosts. I made my way down to the lobby, where I'd arranged to meet with Marcus Rodriguez, the hotel's head of security, a professional I'd inherited with the property purchase but who now reported directly to me. "Good evening, Ms. Morrison," Marcus said, approaching with the kind of respect that came from understanding exactly who signed his paychecks. "How would you like to proceed?" "The Morrison anniversary party in the Crystal Ballroom. I need the hosts removed from the premises immediately." Marcus nodded professionally. He'd been briefed on the situation and understood that this wasn't a typical security request, but rather a property owner exercising their absolute authority over who was welcome in their building. "Any specific instructions for handling the situation?" "Professional but firm. Inform them that their presence is no longer welcome at this venue. Give them 10 minutes to collect their belongings and leave voluntarily, or they'll be escorted out by security." "Understood, ma'am." "What about the guests?" "The party can continue as planned. Only the hosts need to be removed." At 7 p.m., security escorted my parents out. I watched from the lobby as Marcus approached my parents, who were holding court near the bandstand, surrounded by admirers and accepting congratulations on their beautiful anniversary celebration. Their faces showed confusion, then disbelief, then growing panic as Marcus explained the situation in his calm, professional manner. "I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, but you're no longer welcome at this venue. You have 10 minutes to collect your personal belongings and leave the premises voluntarily." Dad's face went red. "This is ridiculous. This is our anniversary party. We've rented this ballroom." "Sir, your rental agreement has been terminated by the new property owner. I'm afraid I'll need to ask you to leave immediately." "New property owner? What the hell are you talking about?" Mom grabbed Dad's arm, her face pale with embarrassment as nearby guests turned to stare at the commotion. "Robert, please, people are watching." "I don't care who's watching. This is our event. I demand to speak to Richard Blackstone immediately." "Mr. Blackstone is no longer the owner of this property, sir. The building was sold 3 days ago to Morrison Holdings LLC." The name hung in the air while my parents processed what they were hearing. Around them, guests began pulling out phones, sensing that something significant was happening. "Morrison Holdings?" Dad repeated slowly. That's when I stepped into their line of sight. "Hello, Mom." "That. Enjoying your anniversary celebration?" The silence that followed was profound. 200 guests turned to stare as my parents realized that their daughter, the family disappointment they'd banned from their own anniversary party, now owned the building they were standing in. "Alexandra," Mom whispered, her voice barely audible above the stunned murmur of the crowd. "I received your text about being banned from the gala," I said conversationally, addressing them loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "You were right to be concerned about embarrassment. It would have been awkward if I'd attended as a guest instead of as the owner." Dad's mouth was opening and closing like a fish out of water. You own this hotel? As of Wednesday afternoon, yes. Morrison Holdings LLC purchased the Grand Metropolitan Hotel for $408 million. Cash transaction, closed in 48 hours. The crowd erupted in whispered conversations as people frantically tried to process what they were witnessing. But Alexandra, Mom said desperately, you don't have that kind of money. You're struggling to build that little computer business. Actually, Mom, Morrison Digital Solutions generated $2.1 billion in revenue last year. The Phoenix Industries acquisition I closed this week brings my total net worth to approximately $4.8 billion. Senator Williams, who'd been standing nearby, stepped forward with obvious interest. Ms. Morrison, are you saying you're the Alexandra Morrison who built Morrison Digital Solutions? That's correct, Senator. The same Morrison Digital Solutions that just revolutionized the Defense Department's cybersecurity infrastructure? Among other projects, yes. The senator turned to my parents with a mixture of confusion and growing respect. Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, your daughter is one of the most successful technology entrepreneurs in the country. Her company's innovations in artificial intelligence have been featured in Fortune, Forbes, and the Wall Street Journal. Mom's face had gone completely white. Dad looked like he was having difficulty breathing. You see, I continued, addressing the crowd that had gathered around us, my parents banned me from their anniversary celebration because they were concerned about embarrassment. They were right to be worried. It would have been embarrassing to attend as a guest when I actually owned the venue. Judge Patterson, a longtime family friend, stepped forward. Alexandra, if this is true, why didn't your parents know about your success? Because they decided 3 years ago that I was a failure and stopped listening to anything I tried to tell them. Tonight's ban was just the latest example of their assumption that I had nothing valuable to contribute to their celebration. I turned to Marcus, who was waiting patiently for further instructions. Please escort Mr. and Mrs. Morrison from the building. Their presence is no longer welcome at my hotel. Wait, Dad said desperately. Alexandra, we can talk about this. We didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't want to know. You were so invested in the story of my failure that you never considered the possibility that I might actually succeed. Mom tried one last appeal. What about the party? What about our guests? The party will continue as planned. I've instructed the staff to provide full service for all the guests you invited. Consider it my anniversary gift. A celebration in honor of the parents who taught me that sometimes you have to build your own doors when people won't let you through theirs. They never saw it coming. As security escorted my parents toward the exit, 200 of the city's most influential people watched in stunned silence. Phones were out now, capturing photos and video of the Morrison family anniversary party ending with the hosts being removed from their own celebration by their daughter's security team. I remained in the ballroom long enough to address the guests personally, explaining that the evening would continue as planned and that the hotel staff would ensure everyone enjoyed the remainder of the celebration. Then I returned to my penthouse suite to watch the aftermath unfold from above. By morning, the story would be all over social media and the local news. The Morrison family anniversary gala that ended with the hosts being escorted out by security after their billionaire daughter bought the venue they'd banned her from attending. Sometimes the best response to being banned from a party isn't arguing for admission. It's buying the building and changing the guest list.